So hi, Welcome to Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with,
Mark from Goalkeeper.
and we're asking some questions today about their upcoming album, I Wish I Met You Sooner. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Really good. This is our first full-length record, so we were a little nervous how people would respond since they've only gotten EPs. And response has been great,
Oh, yeah.
especially to the two singles that came out as well. So very excited.
The album is awesome. I really enjoyed it.
I was gonna say,
Thank
yeah,
you.
the album rocked.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mhm.
It was our COVID project.
nice.
Perfect. So, is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yeah, so we kind of tossed around a bunch of different names for the album, and essentially the album comes down to like I don't want to be like cliche and say like a love story because that's like every pop punk record.
Mhm.
But we really did have this like meaning behind a relationship and this couple that if they would have just met each other at a different time in life, would it have worked out differently?
Mm.
And not even so much in like the negative where, oh, if we met each other sooner, maybe we could have actually worked out, but also the appreciation of the person where it's like, man, like I love you so much. You're such a big part of my life. It would have been awesome to have met you maybe 10 years ago, however long ago. So I could have gotten to spend more of my life with you and maybe not have gone through all like the hardships and troubles and heartbreak.
Mhm.
So, and because of that, so the artwork is actually the one of the Jersey Shore points that are right near us
Oh.
that our friend who did the art, Shaka, he did a really good job at capturing like the photos we sent him to recreate it. And we kind of wanted that. And we kind of see that with the style of the art right now. It's like the older 40s, 50s Americana, like Menzingers, Wonder Years, things like that. So we definitely wanted to be within that realm. So we thought it was like a perfect opportunity to have a couple dancing on the boardwalk where it kind of has both of those meanings where they're at, madly in love and they're going to live on the rest of their lives happily,
Mhm.
or that's literally the last night they're ever going to spend together, which is why it is also at nighttime.
Okay, I like that.
Dang.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
we had 2 years with this pandemic to kind of craft these songs and really kind of figure out. And that was a huge undertaking with the record, which I think makes us just even more proud is we didn't just write 20 songs and pick the best 10 and try to find meaning in it. We only wrote about 13 because we would start writing a record or start writing a song if we didn't feel like it really fit or vibed with what we were going for. We didn't try to really like beat it to make the record. We just said, you know what, it's not working, let's move on. And Ryan and Cody had a lot of conversations together about like what are the missing chapters or pieces of the story we're trying to tell. So that was a very conscious effort on the two of them with writing lyrics for the record. Is okay, we have this song, but how did they get from here to there? What's that missing piece? And so you get some of those other songs on the record.
Makes sense.
Oh, that's
Um,
so sick.
So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for this album?
Yeah, so Cody and Ryan are the main writers. So they often bring in the lyrical ideas and the concepts. And Ryan will typically find some basic chord progressions that fit within the voicing he's trying to go for since he's a singer. Um, Cody usually brings in like lyrics and some simple ideas too. And then we're very old school. Like we don't sit behind a computer and just write and program everything. We literally have a rehearsal space that we plug in our amps, stand in front of each other and say, all right, who has a riff, who has a chorus idea, who has, or you know what, there's nothing, let's just jam. Mark, make a riff, Cody, make a drum beat. And then if something cool pops up, we run with it and roll with it and just jam it out, play it live as we're playing a show. I come in with trying to find a lot of the theory behind it. So, finding the right chord versing's to match the emotion of each part of the song, not just playing a basic A chord or G chord, but really trying to find those inversions that exemplify I think that's the right word, the meaning of that lyric that's being sung.
Okay.
Wow.
Nice.
So you guys only write together in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. So that must have been like pretty difficult in the beginning part of the pandemic where it was like everybody's locked in their house.
So thankfully, in the beginning part of the pandemic, we just finished our last EP, Life in Slow Motion.
Hmm.
So we were a little, let's not write.
Okay,
let's
okay.
let's give ourselves a break and just focus on the release of this EP with the music videos and whatnot. Which thankfully a lot of that could be done virtually. We can have Zoom calls and phone calls about music video ideas and release strategy and stuff like that. Um, but I would say at least over here in Philadelphia, South Jersey, we were able to start getting back together around early June,
Hmm.
Sounds about right.
July.
Yeah.
And so we started to get back, play through songs, rehearse, the new EP. And we kind of just said to ourselves, like, hey, well, we can't play shows. We don't want to do the virtual concert. Just, let's just maybe start writing. It won't hurt to have just a batch of songs that we can go back to in like a year or two after, because
Hmm.
we were still, everyone was in the mindset, everything would open up a month later.
Mhm.
So we're like, oh, we're going to start touring again in like September. So let's just start writing a little bit. And then maybe in like a year or two, we can come back to a lot of the songs and start. And little did we know, a year from that day would be in the studio beginning the track, the full length.
Wild.
Wow.
Mm.
So you guys were just kind of like writing just to write, just to kind of like pass the time, basically. You weren't even like planning for it to be a record.
No, like we knew we were going to do a record, but we didn't know these songs were going to be the record. We were just like, hey,
Gotcha.
let's just keep, because one thing about anyone who writes songs will know that it's like a muscle, and if you don't exercise it, you have to kind of get back into it. And we're already
Hmm.
doing it now. Like last band practice, we started just to kind of riff around on some ideas, just to keep the juices going, because it can be really hard to pick that back up. I think Cody said it best. It's like you run every when you're writing, you're going on a run every day, 5 miles. And then when you stop, it's like you're just sitting on the couch eating pizza.
Mhm.
And then when you start again, you're trying to pick up and run 5 miles again.
Yeah.
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 So we're trying to get into the habit now that we're gonna start touring a lot more and we want to release more records, to just constantly be writing and exercising, even if we do have 30 song ideas, then start to like weed through them. But yeah, it's a longer a long answer to your question. We were just writing to write and keep the muscles going. And the first two songs we wrote were actually Sooner and Car Wreck.
Nice.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
then at what point did you kind of decide that it was time for a record? Because you said like you guys were writing, not like only wrote 13 songs for the record, and you guys were like piecing, into the story. So what was that kind of moment?
Probably the fall. So we wrote Car Wreck and Sooner, and then we started releasing the songs from Life in Slow Motion, like Happy and Just Say It. And then we wrote one of the other songs. It's called Talk About. That's on the record. And we said, okay, well, these are great ideas. Let's demo them. We have this time. We're not going on tour. And we have a great friend in the area who runs like an in-home studio that we can actually track as a live band. So track drums, guitar, bass, vocals. He's one of our best friends too. So hanging out with him for a weekend was just hanging out with your buddy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we started to do that, and that allowed us to really start to dive into the songs more and start writing lead guitar parts and harmonies for vocals and things like that. And around that time, we started to say, we might need to really consider putting new music out a lot sooner than we were maybe anticipating. So we did do the acoustic reimagined version of one of our songs in like early 2021, which was great. But we knew we were going to have to get moving on this. And then when touring really started to kick back in, for us, we started playing our first shows in July of 2021. We kind of kept that as like our deadline. Like we need to get enough songs to go into the studio in that part of the summer, because we'll have a break before all this touring. And then we can finish the record in December, and then we can spend all of 22 on the road, which is exactly what we've done so far.
Nice.
That's
It's
So,
working out.
yeah.
So far, we because we have a lot going on. I mean, we're trying to do this full time like any other band is going for. We're very scheduled, and I really appreciate Ryan and Cody, because I'm the business guy in the band, so I'm the one that says, "Hey, let's decide what we're doing next September in this August,"
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're trying to do so much, like go to West Coast, tour Canada, put the record out, do all these runs. And because we're a smaller band, there's a lot more competition in these cities to get shows. because a lot of these venues are still trying to make up for the money and income that they lost from the pandemic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bands that are bigger than us that are actually playing what we call underplays. So what's a band that could typically do, for those who don't know, listening, a band who could typically do 700 tickets at a show, because there's not a lot of the venues around, they might, instead of trying to sell out 1,000 cap room that they clearly can't do, and they'll probably get paid less because the expenses are higher, they'll underplay and play that 300 to 400 cap room, so they can get paid more and almost guarantee a sellout. Maybe they'll do two shows if they have the time in their tour schedule. Well, those are the types of venues that we get to play. So we're kind of in competition with that. So we have to stay scheduled. And then, while also keeping yourself scheduled for touring, you also need to put the recording process in there, because each session for this record was about 2.5 weeks long of just in the studio every day.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. We're very meticulous in the studio. So we don't just roll in and record rhythm guitar, lead guitar, drums, vocals, and go. We have piano. There's a lot of underlying elements that you can't hear, but if you saw the recordings of the songs, you'd be like, "What? I didn't hear that acoustic guitar. I didn't hear that timpani drum that's in there." All these little elements that make parts a lot bigger, and it takes time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Rome wasn't built in a day. You guys are killing it. So
thank you.
It's worth it.
We're trying.
So what song off this album took the longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
I'm sorry?
Which song off this album took the longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
Longest to write? I would say the one song, Half In, Half Out, took the longest to write, because that was one of the first songs we did. So that was one of the first songs we did so we were very fortunate that we got to write that song with Casey from the Wonder Years, the guitarist. And we weren't even supposed to work on that song when we went into the studio with him. We were just going to do a fresh idea, but he was like, "Oh, let me hear what you guys done so far." And he heard the original version of that and was like, "Oh, this is cool, but it's too simple and you need to push yourself." So he was actually one of the people who really pushed us to push ourselves, to the point where we were like uncomfortable. We're like, "Yo, this is weird," because we're usually a set it and forget it type band. Like, this chorus sounds good, that's good, let's keep it. But because that was a song we completely stripped down to just like, this is the key that it's in, and then rebuilt everything, the lyrics, the melody, the guitar parts, that took a solid 3 days of writing. But you're talking like 10-12 hour days of just grinding it out together. So that was the hardest and the longest song to write.
Yeah.
But I would say my favorite song on the record it's probably either Car Wreck or this one song called Lost Reality, which is going to be the third single. That's like our first song we have a feature on, which we're very excited about, and it pulls a lot of elements that we don't typically do, especially as a 3-piece. So that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to write, and it sounds huge, and so I just can't wait for people to hear it.
I noticed the feature when I was listening through, but it's not on the SoundCloud. So if you want me to cut this part out because you want it to be a surprise for when you guys announce the song, but I'm dying to know who's on the song.
It's actually Nick from Man Overboard.
Oh,
okay. Nice.
Yeah. So we, for those who don't know, we did the record with him, and the main producer, who's been our producer for the last 2 EPs, is Kevin Mahoney from Hit the Lights.
Oh.
So we typically, so he did Bad Times Don't Last, and he did Life in Slow Motion. We've had like the other co-producers on each record too. Like we had Will from Cartel on Life in Slow Motion as well, which was amazing.
Nice.
He taught Ryan a lot about singing, especially. But for this record, we typically travel. Like we usually go to Nashville or Kentucky or just a faraway place. But because we knew this was going to be a full length, we wanted to, and we've been working with Nick. Like we talked to him, we know him, he's from the area. That Lost Reality song was actually a co-write with him as well. He moved to the Gradwell House studio, and we were talking about working together. I'm like, hey, like we love to co-write. it's one of our favorite things to do. Can we come into the studio one day and just jam? And that's exactly how that song came out. And I would say that music was created in a day. That was a super fast song to work on together,
Jeez.
which was rad. Um, and so we knew, like, okay, this is a studio that's close to home. We can go home every night, sleep in our own beds. We don't have to pay for a hotel or Airbnb. And so when we were tracking it, we just said, hey, Nick, you co-wrote with us and you're a singer. You have an iconic voice in the scene. Would you mind featuring on it? And without hesitation, he was like, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're very, very excited for that one. Especially we're like, I think the second song he's ever featured on. The first is The Wonder Years, All My Friends Are in Bar Bands.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome.
we felt really, and he's worked with a lot of bands, so we felt really honored that he was like, yes, this song is something I will absolutely feature on with for you guys.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how'd the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, closer be a closer? Did you shuffle around, see what fits? What was that process like?
So we knew Car Wreck and Sooner would either be this first, second, or one of those two.
Mhm.
And we knew the last song was going to be the last song because it has such an ending record feel. But everything in the middle was, weeks of how about this, how about this, how about this, and ultimately the track listing you guys heard was Ryan. He came in one day and was just like, yo, I locked myself in a dark room and played the record 17 different ways, and this is my favorite. And me and Cody were like,
We'll
yeah,
take it.
cool.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds good.
How could we say no after you put in that much work for it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I really like about having Ryan and Cody in the band is they have a creative brain that I've never gotten to work with in any other bands before. They really see things and hear things differently, and they know how to challenge themselves where they don't just pick the obvious. Even something like what's going to be the first song, Car Wreck or Sooner, that was a discussion for a couple of weeks because how did we want this record to really kick off?
Mhm.
Both songs are great, but what was going to be like the stronger, like kick to everyone's gut that's going to like lock people in and ready to listen to it? So
Exactly.
yeah, and that was how that's how Ryan thought about it and created track listing.
Good job, Ryan.
Yeah.
Right. So would you be able to tell us where your headspace was at while you were creating this record?
That we definitely want to do. I don't want to call it a concept record because it's definitely not, but we definitely had the idea of wanting to tell that story. We're huge fans of the Menzingers and Wonder Years and Man Overboard, and especially I'll play Ode to Menzingers After the Party music video. That really impacted the band in a positive way, like where we wanted to. If anyone watches the video, you see the couple kind of like the turmoil, the love, the loss, the anger, the happiness, and we really felt inspired to be like, you know what, we've been through that in our lives, and let's write that into a record. Let's take our personal experiences and put that. So it was definitely challenging because we're all in a very good place with our relationships. Like I've been married for 4 years, and Ryan has had his girlfriend for a couple of years, Cody the same way. So it was hard to kind of go back and think about the troublesome times and maybe even like dip into like our own personal relationships and like, put that into context to help fuel some lyrics and whatnot. Especially like specifically like the harder times or the happy times as well. Ryan really pulled a lot of the happy parts of his relationship to bring out some of the more love songs where, and then we looked into past relationships and really processed like what went wrong and stuff like that. So it was a little hard because you don't realize of some feelings are kind of like have been like left unspoken, especially if you broke up and just didn't really have that final talk, just ended. But it was also very therapeutic to like then to look at our situation now and be like, yeah, this is great. This is exactly why that ended, so we can be here. So I think that was like the headspace, and musically we wanted to sound bigger. A lot of pop punk bands use a thing called power chords, and as mean and gnarly as they can sound, they often don't have the bigness to them. and being a 3-piece, and we don't use backing tracks or anything. We literally roll our amps on stage, plug in, and play.
Yeah.
So we wanted to write songs that if I'm playing a guitar lead or Cody's doing a drum part or Ryan's playing, like, you know, he has a lot more bass lines and like really defined bass lines on this record. It's for when we go up on stage, we can just rip it and it sounds just as big as like a 4 or 5-piece band.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was the headspace lyrically and the headspace musically.
Nice.
Perfect.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? Should they do it in the car with friends, dark with headphones on? Is it a workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
Ooh, I'd say get into your happy space, wherever that is first.
Okay.
And then show all of your friends and make them listen to it.
Nice.
Of course.
And if you're Ryan, listen to it in the dark and shuffle the track list.
There you go.
17 times.
17 times.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. We track 5, Notice Me, that one. That's like the big surprise song on the record because we've never done something like that ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan created that on his laptop by just getting high, watching like a Lil Peep documentary. So, and then Cody wrote all the lyrics and melody for it. He even sings on that. He's the second verse feature.
Oh wow!
6 years in this band, he's like, I want to sing on this record, and he finally got to.
Nice.
But we definitely want to write the song. We definitely wanted to write the record that any time of year, specifically like end of summer into like fall, winter, you could just like put the windows down and crank it, you know, as loud as possible.
Absolutely.
That's why any band who doesn't do this needs to start. You have to do the car test. So when you get your mixes, go into the car, crank it as loud as you can, and then just drive.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Notice Me because I was listening to it and I was like, this feels like a water parks track, like in the best way. Like I was like, this just like, it feels like a water parks track and just how chaotic it is. I love it.
Well, so we originally we needed like the 10th song and we were going to do the classic acoustic track that every pop punk band does. And those are great. And the ones that stand out in time stand out for a reason.
Yes.
But we didn't have that song. We didn't have that standout acoustic track that would have made an impact. It would have just been a filler song that people were like, all right, that's cool. Let's move on. Which didn't feel right for us. Like, no, if you're going to do it, it has to be something huge. So, and we were trying to make a song that way. Like we were thinking about like, you know, any which way we could record. Like I was watching a 9 Inch Nails documentary and how Trent Reznor records and he'll put himself in like a dark room and just like play his guitar and sing. And so we're like, oh, maybe Ryan can do that in the live room. Like we'll turn the lights off, just put a microphone over him and he'll just play a slightly out of tune guitar, just kind of get that vibe.
Yeah.
But the lyrics still didn't fit the record, going back to finding that missing piece. And Ryan went home, watched a little Peep documentary and thought, I think I could do something like that for fun. Smoked, did it, came to the studio the next day and we're talking about the song. He's like, yo, I gotta show you guys something like off topic. And he's like, yo, like, doesn't this kind of sound like Blink meets Lil Peep or whatever? And we all just kind of looked at him and Nick and Kevin were like, yeah, that's the last song. Like you guys are talking about wanting to do things that no one's expecting. Like that's going to be it. You just have to write the lyrics. And so we, you know, played around with it, got the arrangement right, you know, and then when we came back for the second recording session in December, so this was in July, so that or August, that December, Cody wrote all the lyrics and the melody, and we're like, yeah, they're perfect, they're great, it's catchy, it's simple, you know, definitely gives the vibe that anyone who's ever been to a basement, like a basement show or party, is going to be able to relate to at any age, and yeah,
nice,
perfect. So this one should be super, super quick off the top of your head. I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Okay. Yellow Card.
Okay.
Blink.
Okay.
Men Singers.
Okay. I'll take it. Honestly, I think that's the first time somebody's used like sounds you could hear, people you could hear off the record or
Yeah.
inspirations as the three words. Usually we just get like fun, sad, dance, and like
No,
that's it.
you take all the aspect that make take all the aspects of a yellow card record that makes it a yellow card record, One Years or Blink-182, I mean, and then Menzingers, and we try to take aspects of like all of that and just put into a record.
I love it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want listeners to have while going through the album?
Just whatever relates to them. You know, we've tried to make a very conscious effort not to tell people how to feel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we might give like a description of like what the record or song's about at times, but we also know that people will find perfect example. Sooner somebody reached out to us and said it reminded them of their friend that passed away.
Mm.
And we've never had any sort of conscious thought about that being a song about someone who died, just a relationship that either is great or ended. And so that was a unique perspective we got for that song. And so that's why we really make an effort to not tell people how to feel, be like, tell us how it made you feel.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense.
Because it also makes it more personal for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, I've definitely listened. I mean, my wife's a huge advocate for this. She hates every time she listens to the radio and someone's like, "This is our song, this," and it's about that. And she's like, "Great, that's not how I thought of it, but now I can't think of it any other
Now it's
way."
ruined. You ruined it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I guess to go back to it, how I want people to feel, I want them to feel the genuine feelings that pop up. So if it's happiness, sadness, you know, excitement, loss, whatever it is, I hope we can elicit that feeling that, you know, maybe that was dying for you to let out.
For sure.
Makes sense.
That's the therapist talking to me. Sorry.
No need to apologize. So what is your favorite memory that you made while creating this album?
Okay, so doing the pre-production like in August of 2021 and just sitting in the record at the control room and just talking and hanging out. And it was big for us because this is the first time that our producers never met each other. So as I said, we've worked with Kevin in the past on the previous two releases as the main producer, and we worked with Nick. But every time we did a record, Kevin knew the co-producer and the engineer. They were his friends. He usually, you know. So this was the first time we said, "Hey, Kev, like come from Nashville to New Jersey. Here's Nick, who you've rarely met, and both of you need to work together here." Not that we had any doubt that they would, because they're two of the sickest, awesome people we've ever met. But it can be a little weird when you're going to someone else's studio you don't know and you're trying to like, "Hey, I'm a producer, I'm this, I'm that." So seeing Nick and Kevin develop that relationship together, and then seeing how then all five of us really developed a relationship together, it just set the tone and for the record. And there really wasn't after that, there really was never a frustrating part in making the record. Like you look forward to like getting to the studio, and we used to get there early just to hang out and talk before recording.
That's awesome.
Aww.
Yeah, which I'm usually dragging Ryan and Cody to be on time.
Yeah.
let alone a half hour early just to hang out and talk, and also get to know everyone. Well, I knew the band on a personal level, but really getting to know Kevin and especially Nick more on a personal level, seeing how much we have in common in our personal lives, and not just looking at them as you're the dude from Hit the Lights, you're the dude from Man Overboard, but actually looking at like, you know, you're Nick, like this is who you are, these are your girls, this is your wife, this is your experience as a musician, hearing some of the funniest Man Overboard stories I've ever heard, as well as some of the funniest like Hit the Light stories. So yeah, I would say that was like my favorite part of making the record, was just when everyone, like, you knew that relationship formed.
That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
Also,
Ooh.
Second favorite memory, we were this close to being on a Sesame Street song.
What?
Yeah. So there's a producer by the name of Clay at Gradwell, And do you know the new Jimmy Fallon TV show where the celebrities have to come in and they have to sing a song in a certain style? I
Yes.
think like
Yeah.
Chance the Rapper did one song in country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's Clay's the white guitarist in that band on
Mm-hmm.
the TV show. And
Mm-hmm.
he's also like the touring guitarist for Ed Sheeran, Jay-Z, Rihanna. Like,
Jesus.
yeah, like when we were recording the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that year opened up the NFL season because they won the Super Bowl. He was telling us like, yeah, I gotta go fly down to Tampa Bay and play this gig. It was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium with Ed Sheeran.
Oh, just this gig. Yeah.
Small
Yeah.
gig.
Oh, I love. He's like, yeah, I love Eddie. Eddie's the man. I'm like, oh, you're on Eddie.
Eddie.
Yeah,
Oh,
Eddie
God.
terms with Ed.
So he was writing a song for Sesame Street about like community and stuff like that. And we were checking out the whole time. We're like, this is insane. It's for Sesame Street. And he was like, yo, I'm gonna put gang vocals on it to kind of elicit this like crowd singing response.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys down for that? We're like, yeah. Like
Yeah.
that would be something we get, that would be like the funniest story. It's like, oh yeah, we made this record and we're now featured on a song from Sesame Street. But unfortunately, the producers of the show told them no gang vocals because they wanted to overdub the characters' voices in there instead.
Oh,
Yeah. We're
so
like,
lame.
all right. And then we heard like Kelly Clarkson in there. We're like, what the hell? So we like walked over. He's like, oh, I'm just like remixing her vocals she sent to me for like another Sesame Street song. What's this sound like? We're like, fuck you, dude.
Right.
And he's like the most
up.
unassuming guy. Like, there's no ego. He doesn't dress like a rock star. He just rolls in like everyday clothes. He's from Kensington, Philadelphia, which is like one of the roughest parts of the city. And he's just like,
Mhm.
yeah, I play guitar for people, and it's all right.
Yeah, I'm on an Eddie
pays bills.
bassist with Ed Sheeran, so
Yeah.
So picture this: you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
I'm a huge like Reese's Sticks guy
Ooh.
for candy, and for like a salty snack, I really like kettle chips. I don't know what it is, but her sour cream and onion kettle chips or stuff like that. Horrible things for you. But I would say like those are the best, especially when you're doing like the late night drives and you have like a decent amount of like food you can just kind of pick at and just keep yourself awake as you're driving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why?
A cheesesteak.
Cheesesteak. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're from Philly, so there's the obvious answer, but there's only 3 ingredients to make a really good cheesesteak: bread, steak, and cheese, and we're a 3-piece band, so we make the perfect combo.
There you go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Have you been to a Chubby's cheesesteak place? Have you been there?
No.
No? Oh my God, you need to go. I used to go to Philly like almost every year.
Mhm.
Then my grandparents moved because my dad lived there. But we used to go to Chubby's all the time, and I keep meaning to bring up. People are like, "Oh yeah, we're from Philly," because that's like my one thing that I have where it's like, "Oh,
Where
have
in
you tried
Philly?
this one spot?"
Where in Philly is it? I don't even recognize the name.
God, let me see.
Me and Cody are huge Campos fans,
Mm-hmm.
which is an old city. But honestly, the the trick of the trade is to get a cheesesteak out of the city. The suburbs have the best sandwiches. So
Exactly. There. It's Henry Avenue, Philadelphia, PA. It's just
yeah.
It's just I know it's not like directly in the city. It's literally like right on the outskirts of it.
Yeah, okay. I recognize this. I recognize the street. So, well, there you go. It's not in the city. It's on the outskirts. So,
Exactly.
suburbs, best steaks.
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
Well, that's because the people who who were able to be successful to get out of the city and move into the nice suburbs, so they bring that delicious recipe to them. Not saying that the places in the city suck. I mean, they're great, except Pat's and Geno's. They can go to hell. But
yeah, fuck Pat's and Geno's. I don't know what they did.
They're so overrated and overpriced. It's disgusting. Phillips is great. Phillips is like this dingy little like door that you go into, like that's like you can maybe 10 people wide, and it has like the overhead white creepy light.
Mm-hmm.
they make that's like the best experience to get a cheesesteak if you're brave at 2 a.m.
God.
But yeah, like I said, I like Campos. It's an old city, so it's got a very old city eclectic like vibe.
Mhm.
They actually make it to order, so it's not like a lot of these places that like pre-cook the meat into a giant pile and then just like scoop some of it out.
Yeah.
They make it from scratch, so it's one of those places like it's worth the wait.
Mhm.
Wait 10-15 minutes and you'll get like a way better steak. So
Oh yeah.
Nice. All right.
Perfect.
So for the last couple questions, we're going to shift completely away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with drink?
So drink would be, it's called Key Lime Corrosion. It's this key lime sour beer from this Cape May brewery in New Jersey.
Mhm.
I mean, if I'm gonna go last drink, it's gotta be a beer for us out here in Philly.
I know.
Food. So yeah, it will be a cheesesteak, but it's my friend's family shop called Sea King Deli in the suburb called Delco, which is the greatest county in PA.
Mhm.
So for $7 you get a 10-inch cheesesteak, half-pound fries, and a giant pickle spare, and you can get any toppings you want, no extra cost.
And they haven't adjusted that for inflation?
Well, yeah, they did $6.50 to $7.
Okay. Whoa.
Dude, I'm.
It's still a great price.
Oh, they need to calm down.
And
there.
you get into like a styrofoam container, and
Oh.
it just weighs like 10 pounds, and it's great.
Mhm.
But honestly, yeah, because I'm not a huge food guy. So like a lot of like Ryan really likes food, and Cody is a cook. So like he takes his food. So I tell people my favorite cheese is American cheese. Like I'm an abomination. I like my steak well done. No cap.
Oh my
Like,
God.
I'm not even kidding. I'm not a huge eater. So if I'm gonna go out with the last meal, I'm gonna go where like I've consistently been happy.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That steak well done comment kind of threw me for a loop there, man.
Check
I'm a little.
check my Twitter header. It's a well done cooked steak just to piss people off.
Dude, that's awful. I'm not gonna check your Twitter because I'm not trying to ruin my night. All right.
It's been a good interview up to this point. Way to ruin it. Thanks.
Exactly. End the recording, Shane. We're done.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
accidentally hit delete.
Right.
But yeah, so that would definitely be my death row meal and drink of choice.
Perfect.
All right.
So, if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
Fictional world.
Mm-hmm.
Got two,
Okay.
but for different reasons. One, the woods of Winnie the Pooh,
Oh, okay.
because for
Nice.
some reason, the colors and the way they made the trees and just the look and feel just makes you want to live there. Like, yeah, I could camp out in that. It looks so much fun.
Yeah.
Also, I've got a really weird things with like colors and sounds and how they like remind me of certain things. So, for example, when I listen to Fall Out Boy, it has to be in the fall, closer to Christmas, because for some reason it just makes me feel like think of the holidays.
Oh.
It's
good.
just like I'm very like weird like that. So I would want to live in this town specifically because the purple that they chose to represent the night sky makes me really want to be there in like summertime. Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius cartoon.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
We're like I said, real weird when I think about it, but both of those kind of like elicit some sort of like feeling. I'm like, yeah, I could totally live in that world.
Yeah, that's good reasoning.
Yeah. So I have the honor of asking the last question, and every single person that we've spoken to have said that it is the most important question. What's your favorite color?
Carolina blue.
Ooh, I kind of want to see that.
Sounds good. All right.
Yeah, I've been trying to get the guys to make band merch in that color for a long time, and
blue.
I've failed up to this point. I was a big you can tell like even with my like Monster can, the Carolina blue color. I played lacrosse for years until music, and my favorite like college lacrosse team was always like North Carolina. So.
All right.
Perfect.
So as I said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah. Well, this is probably going to come out when?
next week.
Perfect. So we are catch us on tour. We're going to be hitting Florida through Texas and the Midwest. Check out the new record on the 28th of October. And especially now, the 2 singles, Sooner and Car Wreck. And if you want to follow us anywhere on the social media, it's just at Goalkeeper Band. Super simple.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thank you. For now, that's been Mark from Goalkeeper, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.